without further ado, I want to introduce a few people because I think it's important that you know who they are, their titles, and they're going to talk a little bit about their roles before we dive into our questions. But I first want to introduce someone on HCAR staff who I consider the person on the front line who is our point of contact for SentriLock, and that's Danielle Jacobs. A lot of you all know her. Some of the first experiences you have when you walk in our building, but she's our membership services coordinator, and she's going to help me moderate the conversation with Nicole and Stefan today. And we have Nicole Schlosser. She is the VP of Operations and the General Counsel for SentriLock. Thank you, Nicole, for joining us. And we also have someone who is our local customer service manager. Now, I don't know if you stay local, Stefan, but I know we talk about you, we see you, we interact with you all the time, and we appreciate your service and what you do for our HCAR staff and for our members. And Stefan Vaughn is the customer success manager for SentriLock. So welcome, guys. And we thank you for your time. And I hope this is a great conversation. And like I told them before I let everybody in, I want this to be an annual conversation. We should always have a platform where we can interact with our brokers and our managers. So without further ado, we're going to jump into a few common questions. You know, I had a conversation with staff and with Danielle especially, and I said, let's compose and prepare questions that we hear all the time, especially in this climate of change and transition. And, you know, we've all felt that throughout the last 6 months and over the last year. So if Danielle would join me, unmute herself, we're going to dive right in. But housekeeping, please feel free to put your questions in the chat. We will not overlook your questions. And if we think that we need to interact, like we will unmute you and we will have a conversation and follow-up questions. So let's get started, guys.
These questions are basically reflective of the membership concerns over the past few months that we've been facing. And one of them is, are there any plans to create more workarounds for agents to access non-Bluetooth lockboxes in areas with limited service?
Go ahead and get the ball rolling. Good morning to everybody, and thank you for that very warm introduction, Jessica and Danielle, and all of you all who were able to roll out of bed and get in on Zoom. No, just teasing. Thank you all very much, and let's get some of your questions and concerns answered. One thing that we pride ourselves on at SentriLock is first-time resolutions. And so while Jessica mentioned that she would like this meeting annually, we plan to resolve all your questions, even for the next meeting. So let's go ahead and get started. So to answer that question, I'm sorry, could you answer that question one more time or ask that question? I apologize. You're muted there.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I muted myself back. Are there any plans to create more workarounds for agents to access non-Bluetooth lockboxes in areas with limited service?
Yeah, so there are. Currently, we're working on something directly within an app. You all are familiar with our mobile access codes. And mobile access code is a way to be able to generate a code so that you can enter to that block box and or release that shackle, right? Previously, you may have used a Sentry card to be able to go in, but as we move on with technology, we've deprecated that and provided this solution. So what we're developing is mobile access codes directly within the app. That way, currently, when you use a mobile access code, even though the app works on Bluetooth, it still needs to be able to connect to our servers. So you would still need a cellular connection in order for that mobile access code to be generated. What we're working on now is mobile access codes directly within an app. And how this benefits our users is it would not need a cell service in order to do so. You still would need to authenticate with our server at least once a day, and then you will be able to get your workaround, get into that key door and or release the shackle.
All right.
And that has been released into production. So as of this week, we have released those map codes into production. So that's great news. And so you'll be able to access those non-Bluetooth boxes by signing in, authenticating to the server, and then those will download to your device. Another piece will be, and I apologize, I'm fighting a cold, is on your app, you will see when your credentials are expiring. And it will tell you, you will need to sign into the app. So you'll know when before you leave cell service that you need to sign in and authenticate. It'll either be green or it'll be red that your credentials have expired. And it just means you need to access our server. And that way you'll be able to do that in a non-cellular or low cell environment.
All right. Thank you all for answering that. And we may have some follow-up questions, but for now, I don't see any in the chat. But that is a very common question, concern. We've had people have, little meltdowns because of, circumstances. So the next question is threefold, and I'm going to ask it slowly and may have to repeat myself. So Nicole, Steph, there are reports of Bluetooth lock boxes that are not being accessible. They don't have any service. Can that be addressed? And I think you may have kind of addressed it a little bit in number one. Let's see. And what are some of the known common issues with the Bluetooth lock boxes and the app that have not been communicated cohesively?
That's you hit us with the heavy hitters first thing in the morning now. No, we can address that and we can answer it. And as Nicole had mentioned, and you just made reference to, yes, that has been addressed. So one of the things that we always tell our valued members is while our app is Bluetooth, it works specifically on Bluetooth, it does need to authenticate with our server, and you would need cellular connectivity to do so. So when you have reports of ones who say the box isn't, sorry, much like Nicole, I'm getting over a cold as well. You have those who have those reports and state that the Bluetooth box isn't working in this area. What happens is it could be a low cellular connectivity area, and that app could be trying to authenticate while they're trying to access the lockbox. Some of the workarounds that we've stated to our users is to make sure that you authenticate when you're in a cellular connectivity area before you get to that area that has low cell. But again, with SentriLock, we don't rest on our laurels. We try to make sure that we provide these solutions. So one of the things, like Nicole had mentioned, that we sent out was regarding the app credentials. So no longer would you need to do that every single day. We have it set up where it will be either a 24-hour, a 10-day, or a 20-day, and you'll see when your credentials are about to expire right within the app.
All right.
So to address the question with respect to if we have seen any systemic issues, we have not. So if there are things that are happening, the more information you could provide Steph around who, when, we could pull those logs and find out what's happening with that box. Excuse me. As with any technology, I don't understand it, but there are sometimes just gremlins. So one phone may have a glitch in it and it's not working with that particular box. And so what we need to do is pull the log and be able to see specifically what happened, why they were unable to access that box. So the more information you could provide, such as the member, the time and day, the lockbox serial number, if at all possible, we can actually then pull all those logs and find out specifically what happened.
That's good to know, Nicole, and I know that Danielle and Steph work well together, but sometimes when our members are calling, they're in a crisis.
Absolutely.
So we can do a better job of probably keeping a log and maybe come up with a consistent, just a report to send you all, or maybe something that you all can review and help with some backgrounding to get back with the individual to make sure their problem was resolved.
Yeah, our main goal is to get that person in the house, right, as quickly as possible. There are a few things that we are looking to release over the next few months, and that is for the staff, a release notes webpage that the staff can see when there's different releases that have gone live. So if it's a defect, you can then see it in plain English if there was a defect in a specific version of the box that we're fixing, or if there was a firmware update, right? So we're working on getting that so that you can be communicated to more frequently, to be able to see that information, to say, okay, for example, the MAC codes going out, the credentials going out are all great features, and you'll be able to see on your webpage that those have gone out, as well as some tutorials on how to use those.
Wonderful. So you mentioned that this is for staff. So this is amazing. Do you have a time frame when that will be rolling out? I know Danielle will be our point of contact for that.
We're working on the project plan right now with our IT folks. It does have to be behind the firewall, so it can be for staff. That requires a little bit more coding, and we've been in the midst of getting SentriCard deprecation released. So once that's fully released at the end of March, we're going to be pivoting our resources to get that live. So my hope is no later than second quarter.
Okay, thank you. And guys, I see all the questions and I am going to go right back to them, but we're going to get through these 3 or 4 more that we had already ready in the queue. So Danielle, if you would move forward with the next question.
Sure. So the next question is, what are the phone requirements to use the app? What phones or operating systems are obsolete and not supported by the mobile app anymore?
And so that's a really, my apologies, that was rude. That was a really great question there. We definitely can answer that for you. One of the things we want to hit on with that though, is that the phones themselves don't become obsolete by SentriLock. We have 2 carriers nowadays, or 2 systems, the iPhone or iOS, which is iPhone, and then Android, which is Android, right? So they set the requirements for us on what they allow, and then we follow it based on their requirements. And that's how we create our app based on the requirements that they allow. For instance, currently, our app works with iOS version 10 and above, and Android version 8 and above. And I'm not mistaken, 8 may be Marshmallow or Kit Kat or some funky name like that. And then iOS 10 is just iOS 10. Currently, Apple is on iOS 14 or 15, something like that. And then Android is on version 12 or 13, or going on 13. They just both released new phones, the Samsung Galaxy S22, and then the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and so on and so forth. So it's not really our app, or it's not our app that would create these phones or state that the phones would be obsolete. One thing that we can state is we know that Apple and Android release new phones every year. Android just did theirs a few days ago, and Apple will probably do theirs in August or September. Currently, the iPhone 6S, 6S Plus, 6, and 6S Plus Max will be the phones that will no longer work with the SentriKey Real Estate app. The reason being is that they can't get the latest version of the iOS update, and then a Samsung Galaxy S6, S6S, S6 Ultra, S6 Ultra Plus, try saying that 10 times fast. That also will be one of the phones that will no longer allow the SentriKey Real Estate app to work. And it's due to the system requirements from Apple and Android. Now, one of the things, your phone may still work. You can phone call and text message and things like that. However, it wouldn't work properly or wouldn't work with that. One of the things we try to future-proof ourselves that we foresee in the future, Apple will inevitably create a new device this year, so will Android, as they just did. Our assumption will be that the iPhone 7, 7S, and 7S Plus will be the next renditions of phones to not work. And the same thing with Samsung Galaxy SS, SS Ultra, SSS, SS Plus, and so on and so forth. So it would be based on the phone or the manufacturer's version of their software, and then we just follow that. So that will be our assumption of the next phone to not work. Now, that does not mean that your phone is obsolete. It just can't get the latest version of software from Android, Apple, or even SentriLock Real Estate app. Sorry, that was kind of long-winded there, but
No,
wanted to make sure we were very clear with that.
very detailed.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so just to address all the elephants in the room, we've had a few roadblocks, few technology roadblocks. So we've had the Century card utility issues, card deprecation, and of course that what we just kind of addressed, the iPhone generation limit. Steph and Nicole, do you guys foresee any other upcoming down the pike roadblocks that you guys can address or share with us?
So we don't foresee any, right? But the best laid plans, right? Unfortunately, the Century card utility issues was exactly why we wanted to get ahead of the card deprecation. The cards are going to be deprecated in 2024, and things are just not going to be generated anymore. If you've tried to order any sort of appliance with the new microchips in it, it's almost so difficult to find them. These are older microchips, and we can't find the microchips. They're no longer manufactured for the cards. So those things that go down, like the card utility, it actually just went down. So we have to get developers in order to fix what happened. Those developers are becoming few and far between because the technology is so old. So we don't see any additional challenges, but that's why we're trying to move people off the card and the card utility as quickly as possible so that we can get them to newer technology, that we can find developers that can then fix anything that might go wrong. The second part of that question was around whether or not we're going to deprecate older lockboxes on a wide scale, I believe. And our board has made the decision that we are not going to come out and say, you have to be on the last 2 lockboxes. We have tens of thousands of Gen 1 lockboxes still in the field that work today.
Okay.
And those are 18 years old.
Yeah.
They replace the battery and they keep going. It's kind of the Energizer bunny. What happens though is as technology gets more advanced, they begin to age from a technology standpoint and begin to fail. So what we're asking our customers to do is try to understand how can we begin to upgrade those to the newer boxes once the supply chain challenges are alleviated, and then we'll get everyone on newer technology. But we have made the decision that we will not be deprecating older lock boxes on a wide scale. If it works for you, we'd like to tell you why we think you should upgrade, but we won't be forcing it. With that said, the 3.6s, BLEs, we will manufacture those through this year. After this year, we will no longer be manufacturing them. So we'll still repair, resell, but we won't be manufacturing any new 3.6s after this year. We'll be focused on SentriGuard.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And between Steph and I, we are just a pair, both of us with colds. So I do apologize.
It's okay. I'm listening to you. It's fine. We understand. I can hear you.
All right. So that was a good to know about the deprecation or the not deprecation.
A little louder, Danielle.
Oh, it was good to know about the not deprecation and the change to the SentriGuard lockbox. But before we talk about SentriGuard, is there a timeline on the showing service and other services you offer being available in our region? We knew there were some issues with our MLS maybe being too large. Is there an anticipated date for that?
Sure, I can take that one, Steph. So the showing service, what we've learned in our go-to-market strategy is not necessarily that it's too large, but what we're trying to understand are the features that people are requiring. We've never gone out to market with our showing service to be a copycat of Showing Time. But what happens is that when people have a showing service already, and you go to switch to a new showing service, you're expecting certain features to be there in the way that you had it before. So we are testing our feature set, and not a beta, but just testing the acceptance of the features we currently have in the tool with smaller associations to say, we never meant to be a copycat of showing time. We meant to improve upon it. Does this improve upon the showing service? Or were there certain features that you were requiring from showing time that are just not in our showing service? We have a list of about 15 of those that we're working on that are going to be released by June. At that point, we're going to refine our go-to-market strategy for showing service, meaning our go-to-market strategy was those individuals who are smaller associations that we can manage the customer feedback. And then we'll look to go to larger associations now that we feel much more confident that we have a base set of features where people will not be upset with staff for switching from a showing service that's been in existence for 20 years to one that's been in existence for 1 to 2 years. And that's where we're baselining. So our goal is to have the go-to-market strategy refined in June when that 15 feature set is released, and then look to see how we can begin to onboard other associations based on what their needs are.
All right, all right. So in 2021, we remember you all did a a market rollout for the SentriGuard lockbox. Is there a timeline for that the lock boxes released in our area?
They are available. Our challenge is supply chain. So we have issues getting the parts onshore. We have enough to manufacture approximately 50,000 SentriGuard lock boxes, except for one part, and that is the microchip from Taiwan. It is the microchip that is used. It's the manufacturer that has microchips that, if you've ever seen pictures of all the trucks in the Speedway in Kentucky, for example, they take the microchip and remove the truck because there's such a shortage. We have been told we should get that shipment in March in order to manufacture those. What we're trying to do is upgrade our customers in a manner that says we'd like to give some to all versus all of our inventory to just some individuals. So our focus is on existing customers and how do we upgrade them and who needs what when. Our goal is to get a lockbox on every listing that needs it and not necessarily the shelf. So your CSM step will ask questions around how many do you really need? If we only have 500 to give and we have 5 customers, we're asking those questions. How many listings do you have? How many do we need to get to you until the supply chain challenges begin to lessen?
Okay, thank you, Nicole. We're gonna jump into some of the chat questions now. And I see one that is a common issue, and we answer it as best as we can, and we try to assist our members. You guys have subscribers that have these issues. So a few of our people in the chat, and thank you for your questions because I got some good ones. So their waiting time sometimes, sometimes things are, executed fast, but over this last weekend, one of our brokers said the waiting time was abnormally long. Are there any plans for adding help, even if it's for a season?
So our average, yes, so I can answer that question. Our wait time over the weekend was really horrible, right? So I get reports every day. That team reports up through my organization. And we had a firewall issue occur, and it caused some longer wait times as people were trying to get things resolved. And it was upwards of 3 minutes. Our average speed to answer is about 25 to 20 seconds, which is very above average for the industry. But this past weekend was pretty bad. We are constantly in a hiring mode. It is a little difficult when we're going up against a Kentucky Fried Chicken or a McDonald's because people are not necessarily wanting 401ks and health insurance. They're wanting to get out of their parents' basement. And to do that, they want the cash in their pocket. And so we're in the process of actually realigning compensation to be more competitive to get people staying in those roles. But our customer service center does have a high turnover. It's lower than industry average, but still we do have churn, and we are constantly hiring to get those individuals in. We've also started to cross-train as the supply chain challenges have caused some of our assembly lines to be a little slow. We've started to cross-train some of our assembly line individuals into the call center to try to make sure we get people on the phones. But yes, it is something we monitor every day. I have a screen in my office that I monitor the call volume every day to see where we are in a wait.
Wonderful. We are happy that you guys are addressing that and that you monitor it daily. That's important, and for all of us to improve in what we serve, how we serve our members. This is a clarifying question, and I think this is important. I probably need to hear this myself. Could you all take a minute and clarify the difference between the mobile access codes versus the 1 day versus the contractor codes?
I can clarify that for you with a little bit of comedy. Just use Century Connect. That's all you need. No, I'm just teasing. That is a service, the app that we offer that would satisfy all the needs for that. But to answer the question, so a mobile access code is a code that's generated directly at the lockbox for you via the app. As mentioned earlier, Nicole said that rollout will be this week. So you'll be able to generate those codes to be able to get into the app. That's what a mobile access code is. A 1 day code is a 1 day code. It's a code that you generate maybe for an out of town or out of area agent, or maybe an affiliate or something like that, that you would need to give them access to be able to get into the lockbox. For instance, an agent may use a 1 day code. If they tried to use their app and they weren't able to get in, they may contact the lockbox owner or contact SentriLock, and then we would provide them that 1 day code after we got the approval from the lockbox owner. And then the contractor code are specific to you. So that's pretty cool. You may remember your old PDF that you used to get when you would first sign on with SentriLock and have your PIN and your password, and you had all those list of codes there at the top. A contractor code allows you to be able to put a code in specifically for, again, that affiliate or out of area agent for them to be able to have access to the lockbox. You will be the only ones with those codes, whereas a 1 day code would be automatically generated upon your approval, and then a mobile access code, again, being directly at the box or from your app. Did that kind of sum that up there for you?
To add on to that, 1 day codes are still prohibited under Mid-Atlantic Realty Services for our region, so we cannot produce.
There you go.
Hey, that was an important plug because we are a part of that alliance, and our rules are a little different from some other associations. So I'm going to look through the chat, and Danielle, you please help me too, because I know some of these questions have been addressed.
Yeah.
So if you see a question that has it, you can go ahead, Danielle, but I do want to address one thing. One of our broker managers here asked, could we formally put out just a Q&A, questions and answers that we addressed today for our membership? And if Steph, if you all wouldn't mind, I would love for you all to help us with that. I've been taking some notes. But if we can address it in a nice little report Q&A form, that'll be something that we can send out to our members and also put in our newsletter, because some people were not able to join us today.
Yeah, I can help you out with that.
All right.
And tell them stay tuned, because we're going to be doing this annually. So
that's right.
Too.
That's
right. Okay, Danielle, you can go ahead with a question.
There was one actual product suggestion. Serial numbers can be difficult to see depending on the angles. Where is the serial number going to be on the SentriGuard? Is it going to be like right in front, very easy? Like, is it going to be tiny? What are the plans?
I can address that for you. Let's call on not Nicole, but one of my other SentriLock buddies, Mr. SentriGuard right here. So as you can see, our SentriGuard, very beautiful lockbox, get the Vanna White going on here, but our serial number will be right on the side for our SentriGuard lock boxes. So it should be a lot more easier to see for our users.
Towards the bottom. All right.
I see a follow-up question about just the supply chain issue, and I think this is valid. Even if you kind of addressed it, but if you could just address it again, because this is something that I think people just want the picture to be painted. Do you have a projection on when the supply chain issue may ease up with regards to the chips needed?
It is, we try to figure out who's the patron saint of supply chain. Let me tell you, it has been 10 times that this chip has been delayed. You want to see someone who's worried every day, it's Scott Fisher. We are unable to forecast it. We are one of, well, the whole world is waiting on these chips. If you've tried to order any sort of appliance or vehicle, it is months before you could actually get these things because the chips are coming from one location in Taiwan. What we have been told by our supplier is they've located 50,000 of the chips for us, and we are going to get that shipment in March. They have told us that 9 times before. So until they are here in Cincinnati, we're holding out that they've actually said they're going to be shipped. What we are doing is we are looking to onshore every component of the SentriGuard lockbox so that we know that COVID is not done, that there'll be more variants or there'll be more pandemics. So how do we make sure that we're not in this situation again? And that is to try to onshore as much of the SentriGuard lockbox as possible. We've located a couple manufacturers in Wisconsin that can do the outer shell and can bend the steel. And we're looking to get some alternate suppliers. That takes time. So they have to tool up and get those onshore. We also, I don't know if you've heard in the news that there's in Columbus, outside of Columbus, Ohio, in Lincoln County, they're building a microchip plant. That's going to be 3 years before it's online. So nothing great news for right now or today, but we are working to make sure that we're not in this situation again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Danielle, do you see any additional, because I may ask Sarah, because she's had a lot of great follow-up questions. Do you see any additional questions that have not been addressed?
Not so much a question, but again, another maybe suggestion. If there are, from what it's saying, is if there are like issues like the phone, your system going down over the weekend or something like that, or firewall issue, and things are going to be delayed, can a message be sent out directly to membership? That especially if it's over the weekend, associations aren't open, but there's delays in the calls. This is what's happening with us, so that this isn't, people aren't sitting out there in the snow or the cold, like wondering what's happening.
I was watching that in the chat as well, and I think that's a great comment. When things happen, we are in the midst of it as well. What we are looking to do is we're on an older phone system.
Mm-hmm.
So as we've been in business now for almost 20 years, we're looking to now begin to make sure that all of our technology is also upgraded as we've been upgrading the technology in the boxes. And part of that is our telephony. And so how do we get to the point where we're able to do click to call back, click to chat, skill-based routing, and we are going to launch that this year. Most likely later this year. We've launched it in our showing service, moving our telephony onto a different platform. That will allow us more flexibility for average wait time, for example, when you call in, to be able to put your phone number in to call you back if it's not urgent. That then hopefully will clear the queue for those individuals who are standing on the porch. Our average speed to answer is 20 to 25 seconds. It is top notch in the industry, but what happens then is when something goes down and you're standing on the porch for 3 minutes, it's not expected. So understood around getting that in the moment. The thing that's it's by the time we get the email out, normally things have cleared. So when I watch the board, for example, I'll see our average speed to answer spike around 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock Eastern time. And then by 3 to 4 or 5, it's back down. So it's kind of those peak times. And maybe what we can do is help individuals understand when those peak times are, So they know that you may experience a longer wait time. But things like when you call in, helping you understand what the average wait time is, also the opportunity to click to call back or click to chat.
All right. I see a suggestion in the chat box. If you could follow it with me, Nicole, because it's a suggestion as well as I guess some facts behind it. Yeah, and it is, why can't the dissolution of the use of cards be delayed until the supply chain issues and call center employment issues are resolved? The reality of our market is that agents are allowed 15-minute showing windows, and it can take you almost the whole time to get access. And this is from probably one of the largest, I know the top 2 or 3 brokerages in Columbia here in Howard County. So this is a great suggestion.
So we've heard this suggestion many times around the card deprecation and moving the time out. This goes right in line with the question that you asked earlier, which is issues with the card utility, issue with the card. The technology is not able to be supported or replaced. So we're trying to get ahead of that so that when it does break, you're on something new already and you don't have to be held hostage by the fact that we can't get you another card utility reader or another card. That's the whole premise. And we're doing it in phases. So the card deprecation, the features that we've launched this week should help greatly in any low or no cell coverage. We're going to be phasing that into your county, I believe, Steph, that's March. Is that right? Yes. So HCAR will be March. We'll be phasing in those card deprecation features to you, for you to see how they work in your area. And then as we work to upgrade your boxes over the next year or so, they don't go away to 2024. We're phasing in different components of its usage, but it really goes to one of the first questions, which is any additional roadblocks we may see in the technology, and it is that it breaks and we can't get it to replace for you anymore. I kind of liken it to beta VHS tapes, right? To find a VHS player anymore is it's so difficult. DVDs. My husband for the longest time used a Nextel phone, and I had to get him off of that to an iPhone. It's just technology as you get very comfortable with it and don't want to switch. But at times there are things that change and we just can't get the technology anymore. So we're working very hard to make sure that you can get what you need when you need it.
All right, getting a few more in the chat if you follow with me. And we had a broker manager ask a few questions, and I think we're going to sum it up. So when will the cards be out of service? And with the supply chain issue, does it make sense to elongate this until the new boxes are more readily available and used?
So it's, again, the cards, I believe, Steph, are out of service in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
We hope, and hope is never the great business strategy, that we will be able to upgrade those customers who want to upgrade by that time. By that time, we will be onshoring a large part of the SentriLock lockbox to be able to get those boxes in your hands.
All right. Danielle, do you have any additional questions?
Yes. So there was one, how long is our contract with SentriLock? And that's an answer I don't have offhand.
I can help you out with that. So you're with me forever, and let's keep it like that. We're having a great time, and we love you all. So no, I looked up that information for you. Your contract expires April 1st of 2028. So our contracts are generally 7 to 10 years, or in some instances, they may be 5 to 10 years or something like that. But your sales rep, which I believe is James Reynolds, will probably be reaching out to you within the next few years or so to see, is there anything additional that you may be looking for out of your contract not out of your contract, anything additional you may be looking for with your current contract and how we can better assist you.
Yeah. I think overall the census, but besides those targeted issues, it's just communication. You know, overall that needs to be addressed and it needs to just improve. And I think we can work on that together because honestly, we're all on the same team, but I have to be honest with you, our members are a little upset about a lot of things being like falling through the cracks or miscommunication and just not the overall message being consistent and easily, cohesive. So I think that is something overall, because I'm reading through some of these comments and, Danielle chats, we have staff meetings every week and she does SentriLock training twice a week. And she's on the front line and she gets the bulk of these, angry calls. And by right, when you're dealing with the client and you're at a home where things are not working, you have every right to be upset when you are a paying customer. So I think we can work together as a team to improve that and to make sure whatever we can do to support messages as well. And I think you and Danielle and Steph, you guys work well together. So I think that's something we need to just work on behind the scenes and deliver better.
Yeah.
Let's look in the chat. We have a little bit more time.
There was one thing, there was a question regarding contractor codes. I believe someone said they were being discontinued. Due to it not being secure. Is that true?
So I can address that. So as we sent out and believe in 2018 and 19, we talked about sunsetting certain features. Contractor codes would be one of those features that we plan on sunsetting and just letting it ride off into the sun. We know that you do not offer one-day codes, but as you upgrade and as you continue to work with us, we think that the more secure option, as we mentioned earlier, is our Sentry Connect, which puts you in the driver's seat and gives you the, sorry, go ahead. It looked like you were about to say something, Danielle.
I was waiting for you to finish.
Okay. With our Sentry Connect, it puts you in the driver's seat and gives you the ability to be able to grant access and revoke it as well.
So we have Sentry Connect in our area. I thought we did.
So
not.
no, as I said, as you upgrade, you do not have Sentry Connect in your area.
Can you elaborate on the barriers of getting the Sentry Connect?
Yeah. So one of the things that to have Sentry Connect, you will want to make sure that you had majority Bluetooth. Let me pull this up right quick. Majority of Bluetooth for your lock boxes here. And so in looking at your inventory, you have a mixed inventory here. You had about, I would say around 6,000 Gen 2 NXT wireless lock boxes and around 2,900 Bluetooth. So Sentry Connect would only work with those Bluetooth lock boxes. So you need to be on majority Bluetooth for it to work properly.
Thank you.
So that would be the biggest and only roadblock there. One other thing, I saw it in here. I wanted to address Mr. Steve's question, if that was okay for you young ladies. Okay.
Please
So,
do that.
okay. No, Mr. Steve, you do not have to get a new phone every time Apple or Android releases a new phone. If you ever watch any of their, iOS shows or Android shows, whatever they're called, they always talk about what phones they'll support, and it's usually a long list of phones, but they no longer support older generational phones that cannot get the latest version of their software. So that's why they no longer support them. And in essence, we will be following suit. If you can't get the latest version of their software, then you wouldn't be able to get the latest version of ours. So no, every time they bring out a new phone, We are not saying, yes, you need to go out and purchase the new phone, but it would be wise to see which phones are no longer supported by Apple and or Android.
Oh, and Steve was putting out that was Charles' question.
Yeah.
Steve was asking about the over-the-phone renewal of the cards, which I think is not a SentriLock decision on the restriction, isn't it? A Mars decision, correct?
Yeah, so that will be up to our Mars board there. I did have a conversation with Peggy surrounding that, but that would be something that you all highlight, and then we follow your direction on it.
Gotcha. We're taking good notes to make sure we follow through. We actually invited Peggy to this meeting. I don't think she had a conflict. There are a few more questions I see, and I do want to address them. President Anderson, she put in there, lockbox consortiums aside, are there any plans to add more accessibility to the product on a cross-regional basis? We do have a lot of agents come in and out of our area whose boxes aren't set to work with us.
Yeah, so I'm going to address that for you. That's a really great question. One thing to note, though, is that the associations work together. Besides even just our Mars board here, the associations work together on what they feel will be best for each one of them. For instance, some associations would allow for that cross region, or is what we call reciprocity between their boards. And so you may have an instance where it's either a full reciprocity or a partial. Full will mean everybody has it on both sides. Partial will reflect you would have to sign, each individual will have to sign up for it. So if you're really interested in working in another region, it would be wise to reach out to that region and say, hey, I'm here, I want to come work with you all, but I love my board here. Are there any plans for you all to have reciprocity with our particular board, or vice versa? You could reach out to your board and ask them, are there any plans to work regionally with another board?
On that note, in Maryland, everybody is reciprocal with everyone except for Coastal and Garrett.
Correct.
Thank you for that. That was actually a good question. All right, guys, this has been a great discussion. So can you all give us just some direction in where we can learn more about Sentry Connect on your website?
Yeah, so you can go to learn more about Sentry Connect in a few places. One would be me. I can provide you the information that you need. Two, if you want it on the website, you can go to SentriLock.com/help. And you can even go to our YouTube channel and see how SentriLock works. And that's we're on YouTube/SentriLock1. And you're able to see in-depth tutorials and videos regarding our Sentry Connect.
And with that being said, and of course, I know you would like to drive more people to your website, but we definitely can support that and maybe add a section to give updates, weekly highlights, and make sure our members are seeing where they can go with, the proper links or graphics to answer some of these common questions and just help them get more familiar with Sentry Connect.
So to follow up on that, we will not be able to get Sentry Connect in our region until we get rid of about a third of our Gen 2, all of our Gen 2s. All right. So that was what he was explaining, was we can have no Gen 2s that are currently active, basically.
Gotcha. Just for clarity, I see a few people have asked some good questions. How do we remove ourselves from the Mars board? That is a big decision, and that is a discussion that the Mars board and the 4 associations involved would have to decide. And we do have active members on our board of directors that serve and are voting members on the Mars board. Is Sarah Anderson, our president, here still?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. And I just want to back up just to make sure I'm explaining it right. So we are a part of the Mars board, and that makes up 4 different associations. That's the Greater Baltimore Board, Carroll County, as well as HCAR and Hartford County. So Lisa Soto, I just wanted to make sure you were not overlooked, but that is a decision that we can't make alone. However, we can get back with you on just the pros and cons of what that means. So that's a loaded question. President Anderson, do you have any follow-up or closing remarks? Because we have a second segment of this broker manager call and presentation.
I don't think I have any questions that would be helpful to this forum here, but I will be following up with Danielle about the number of those Gen 2 boxes we have so that we can figure out how quickly we would get to that next stage. And then anybody that wants to chat about some of the things that we've seen come up in some of the Mars board meetings, I am happy to have those conversations and just let you know what the board is talking about, because it affects accessibility for all of us. So feel free to call me. I will put my phone number in the chat just in case everyone doesn't already have it. But thank you so much, Steph and Nicole. We appreciate the deep dive that you did for us on these things. We do have a lot of questions coming in. Danielle does an exceptional job of fielding them. But we also appreciate your additional insight here for us.
Yeah.
So that's all I got.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And Nicole and Steph, I want to give you a minute or two if you have any closing remarks. And I know you're able to see the chat as well. So any closing remarks, and like I told everyone in the introduction, this is a continued conversation. It's important that we continue this. And if not annually, we can do it more than once a year. But I think this is important to keep the relationship healthy. So Nicole, Steph, you have an opportunity to close us out before we move into our legislative update segment.
I just want to really thank you for your time this morning and helping us understand where your challenges are. There are certain things that are outside of our control where we just can't fix them, right? Supply chain is outside of our control. The technology going away is outside of our control. But how do we make it easier, right? We want to make sure, we are owned by NAR. So your members are the people who also own a piece of us. And we take that very seriously. So if you have any sort of questions or offline conversations, I will put my email in the chat, although it's auto-corrected a few times. You can get a hold of Steph as well. And we will continue to make sure that we provide you information on what we're doing to make sure that you're capable of doing your job the best way that you can.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're gonna transition, guys. Steph, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, just very briefly again to echo Nicole's thoughts. No worries. I just again wanted to say thank you to all of you all, because without you, we wouldn't be possible. We really appreciate you, and thank you very much. And sorry, Steve, I mixed you up with Charles there, but it was really nice meeting all of you. Thank you again to Howard County, to Jessica and Danielle, and welcome our new board president, Sarah. Thank you all very much.
We appreciate it, guys. So we're going to transition. If some of you all have to leave, please stay, because I think this is an important part, and we're going to keep the legislative update a part of all of our quarterly meetings. So we have someone that I don't know if you all had a chance to meet yet, but we do have our 2022 Legislative Committee Chair, Steve Miller, as well as our new Government Affairs Director. Well, I don't know if she's considered new anymore. She's been with us almost 90 days now. And we have Blair joining us. So without further ado, I would like for Steve to jump right into it. I think he has just some relevant information about just legislative issues and maybe some bills that we should keep our eye on. But Steve, you have the floor.
Thank you, Jessica. Appreciate it. Thanks everybody for being here. I'm going to be as brief as I possibly can because like many of you, I have a bit of a loaded day as well. Legislative committee meets every week. We go through the stack of bills that Maryland Realtors is observing that are upcoming. Of course, we're in the heaviest part of the legislative session right now. Our meetings, generally speaking, are at 8:45 in the morning over Zoom and in person permitting. So if you're interested in joining the legislative committee, highly recommend that you do so. You can reach out to myself or Blair or really any of the staff. We'd be happy to get you tied into that. So without any further ado, what I'm referring to is found on the Maryland Realtors website. If you go to MDR's page and I'm trying to bring it up right now, and you click in the tabs under legislative and the current session, we're going to talk about the lobby day issues. Today is our virtual lobby day. Yesterday was our modified in person. So that being said, just a couple quick points. It has become an issue in the industry for love letters, as we're all very well aware of, and Maryland Realtors has handed down rulings saying that we don't recommend that you submit them as a buyer agent, excuse me, as a listing agent. We recommend that you do not submit them either. There could be potential fair housing issues. So, pardon me. Right now, there is a bill in draft that we are working with our legislative partners to effectively stop the submission of them because even though there's been a lot of guidance and a lot of information that's been put out there, folks are still doing it. As a personal professional point in my listing documents, I tell buyer agents we're not submitting them. And it's been my recommendation and probably talk to your various brokers and managers as well to do the same. We're also working with our legislative partners on HB 568 that's cross-filed with Senate Bill 425 to codify and permit at the table payments. Some of the brokerages and the teams do direct payments at closing. We're just trying to make sure that everything is done the same for anyone who decides to do that. Moving right along, since the pandemic and a lot of continuing ed has moved to Zoom or hybrid, we've seen some issues with state requirements of continuing ed and verifying that folks are there. So the state right now, excuse me, with Maryland Realtors is working on a bill to require an affidavit for anyone who takes an online class in lieu of presenting their photo ID. So if you take your fair housing or your ethics courses that are required by the state, an affidavit will go along with it. Again, a lot of this is really just housekeeping, but these are the things that we are working on right now. Moving on to stuff that's probably a little bit more closer and near and dear to our hearts, accessory dwelling units have become an issue. We do, of course, have a housing shortage, as we know. So at the state level, we are working with our legislative partners to create a permission for local jurisdictions to allow accessory dwelling units within. So the idea being that you could build the infamous granny apartment or the second structure on your property. And the idea behind this is if you have a family member, specifically because we're working with AARP on this, who wants to age in place, you can put them in there legally. There would be no issues from the county, and then they could potentially become a rental unit or something else down the road. So we're working on that right now. And if you want to really dive deep into it, it's HB 1259 cross-filed with Senate Bill 871. We're also working right now, and again, this is a lot of stuff coming down the pike. Partition of heirs legislation, in effect, in a situation where you have multiple parties that inherit a property, there have been scenarios in which developers have gone in and tried to basically snake everybody out from underneath of it, purchase a property below market rate, and the remainder of the heirs are left holding the bag and potentially not getting as much value for the property. So one of the things that we're working with our partners is we want to make sure that there are notice requirements, that there are fair market appraisals, and a true market sale rather than picking it up at the courthouse for pennies on the dollar. So more or less trying to protect the wealth that families have created through real estate ownership. Keep in mind that our charge on the legislative committee is not just speak for our industry, but also to speak for property owners within Howard County and then at the state level and across the board. Then we get into climate change. It's the hot topic of everyone's discussions at this point, no matter where you fall in the political spectrum. There are a number of bills right now that are making their way through the committee. Some have widespread support, some do not. The bottom line is many of these are going to work to change our building codes to make buildings more resilient, more green, and more efficient. However, I want to draw your attention very specifically to HB 708, cross-filed Senate Bill 528. Our problem with this, that we are in opposition to this, although we're not in opposition to making things resilient, the problem is we have specific issues with the timelines that are put forth by the state to require commercial properties to be carbon zero. The problem is there are logistics here in the industry. The building industry is looking at it saying, we're having a hard enough time getting supplies as it is. Now you're asking us to completely change our supply chains in the middle of it. We as realtors are looking at it saying, yes, this is a great idea, but the practical application of it leaves a lot to be desired. So our opposition is not because we're against anything that would help to offset climate change or carbon emissions. It's simply from the logistics and the reality of it. It's a great feel-good bill, but it leaves a lot to be desired. And then one of the last things I want to touch on is Landlord-Tenant Law. There's a ton of bills every single session. Most of them don't even make it out of committee. But since COVID has adversely affected landlord-tenant relations across the state, it seems like there's a few more than usual. So in effect, the quick rundown, and again, this is all backed up on the Maryland Realtors page that I've mentioned. HB 298, Senate Bill 223, would increase the eviction surcharge and make it non-recoverable. Non-starter for us. We're in complete opposition to that. If a landlord has already been injured financially and has to evict a tenant, they should be able to recover those fees that the court charges. HB 323 is a nuisance law. We're actually in support of this. And in effect, it takes the authority away from the local counties that pass nuisance laws, finding tenants and landlords when a tenant calls emergency services too many. Effectively, it's eliminating the ability of a landlord to go after a tenant. There are multiple issues that are in play that we've discussed in my legislative committee meetings, and I don't want to bore everybody with the details, but in effect, this is actually good legislation. It needs a little bit of work that we've submitted some suggestions to our legislative partners, and we're moving forward with. Mold inspections. Mold is a big issue, especially in rentals. There are multiple jurisdictions that require annual or semi-annual inspections for licensure and legal rentals. Bottom line is this creates an inspection requirement for mold in all rentals. And although tacitly we would be technically in support of that, okay, the reality is the language of the bill is a little too overarching. And so as a result, we are in opposition, but we would support amendments to the legislation that would allow for ongoing inspections. So again, the language isn't great, so we're opposed to it in that respect. If they can tweak it to our satisfaction, we could very likely change that position. HB 367 is rental assistance. This has been a hot topic and it keeps coming up in multiple bills. And quite frankly, it's enough to make your eyes go crossed. But effectively, it would prevent the landlord from filing eviction against a tenant who has applied for rental assistance while they're in while they're still in the house, potentially as a holdover. We're in opposition to it. It comes to a point where effectively the Band-Aid has to be taken off. And so as a result, you know, we just like our contracts are time is of the essence, we got to eventually get moving forward with these proceedings in the courts. HB 551 rent control. I'm not going to waste any time on it. We're in opposition to any and all rent control, period. Fair enough there. HB 691, SB 564, wrongful detainer. It makes some changes to the laws giving squatters access to free legal counsel. We're opposed to that. HB 693 is an eviction surcharge bill as well. In this case, the charges are increased, but they allow the landlord to recover those expenses. So we are in support of that. And then finally, HB 724, SB 662 authorizes the state to use money from the abandoned property fund to fund access to counsel for tenants. And we think that it's a good idea that the state allocate those funds from abandoned property to help tenants best as they can. But again, there are some minutia that we have to work out. As far as the county level, we are looking very closely at CB7 and CB8. These are zoning change bills that would require a certain golf course in Ellicott City, who has been given permitted zoning going back many years, would require them to increase their moderate income housing units that are available. There's been a lot of discussion, and it seems to be kind of stagnated right now in the county council, but we are keeping an eye on it. We are going to deliver testimony, most likely in opposition if it comes down to that, simply because they've already granted the zoning. They can't come in after the fact and change that. And there is established law in Maryland that this would possibly fly in the face of. So again, a lot of stuff moving around. These bills are constantly coming up. I highly recommend that you keep tabs on our email updates, as well as on the Maryland Realtors page. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is, and you probably all should have gotten emails this morning, because I did as well. We have our 2022 Expo coming up in March. As many of you are aware, we did not have our normal breakfast with our legislators this past December because of the special session that was called the General Assembly. We did have the opportunity to have breakfast and a Q&A with Dr. Ball, and I was able to see many of you there. We are going to use portion of the program for the 2022 Expo for a legislative breakfast, and we've invited all of our electeds to this. So highly recommend that if you have the ability, put it in your calendar. It's going to kick off at 8:30 in the morning.
It is March the 3rd.
Thank you.
So this is something that we're adding to the value of our day, our conference,
Here we go.
annual conference and
Yep.
expo. So
Mhm.
Thank you, Steve, for plugging that. I think that's super important, that the morning will start off with the legislative breakfast. And it's looking like we're getting some RSVPs, guys. So a lot of our local delegation will be there. And I think it would be a wonderful kickoff to an amazing day. So thank you, Steve, for that.
Not a problem, Jessica. And if I may add, one of the most important things that we can do as spokespeople for our industry is get face time with our elected officials. It is vitally important that they know who we are and that we know who they are. So my recommendation to everyone here and to our colleagues in general is get involved, find out who your representatives are, and pull on their ear. If there's a matter that you think is important that needs to be legislated, please contact us at the committee, and please create those open lines of dialogue between you and your electeds. It's more beneficial to us as an industry and to property owners in Howard County and Maryland in general if we are proactive in this approach rather than being reactive. It's a lot easier for me to pick up the phone and call a county council member about legislation that might be coming down the pike than to move everything that we need to testify and submit testimony and so on. So just please keep those points of contact open, be friendly, be professional, and let them know that we're here.
Along those lines, I just wanted to add that the virtual lobby day is today for Maryland Realtors, and the Howard County Association has Zoom meetings scheduled at 10, 12, and 3:30 today to meet with a few delegates and a Senator Lamb. So if you have time to hop on a Zoom for about 20 minutes at any of those times, I will drop my email in the chat, and please just shoot me an email. I will send you the Zoom link, and we would love to have you participate. Like Steve said, being able to share your personal experiences in the way that the legislation can hurt or help you as a realtor and the industry as a whole is so beneficial.
100% agree, Blair. Thank you. That's all I have, Madam President. Jessica.
Thank you. So if you
Appreciate
all, yeah, one or 2 minutes. Are there any questions that we have from our 26 participants? I think it's vital that you guys hear any questions, and I'm glad that you plugged. Get involved, guys. Get involved. The legislative committee, as you can hear, it's super busy, and we appreciate you all's time because it is time consuming. But we appreciate you guys staying on top of the many bills that come across our desk. All right, any questions? I don't see any. I see just reinforcement of our legislative online times for our delegation for Howard County. And Blair has dropped her email as well. If you all want to join in the conversation today. All right, so really this concludes our broker manager quarterly kickoff. So thank you guys. I hope you have a great week. I hope to see you at the center, the Howard County Library center location for our redesign, the Red Line. Tomorrow is our official Realtor Day tour. Thank you guys and have a great week.